I'm going to be telling you guys about historical versus modern views on the evolution of same-sex behavior in the animal kingdom. I'm going to go over some basic terminology first. So I'm going to interchangeably use same-sex behavior with homosexual behavior. Same-sex behavior refers to any interactions with the same sex that would be typical for the species under reproductive contexts. So this is going to include like mating, courtship displays, affection, pair bonding, and things like co-parenting. How common is it? It's pretty damn common, honestly, and it's impressively diverse. It's been documented in over 1,500 species so far, and repeated observations have been made for a third of these. The taxa that this occurs in ranges from birds to even parasitic worms, which is crazy. I need a shirt that says, the worms in my gut are gay. The parasitic worms in my gut are gay. But yeah, I love that so much. And even that 1,500 estimate is likely an underestimate because we can only really tell if same-sex behaviors are happening in sexually dimorphic species. So if you have a monomorphic species, that means both the male and the female look the same, like crows. We wouldn't be able to tell if they're having a same-sex interaction or a heterosexual interaction. We usually just assume that those are heterosexual pairings. The only way to know really would be to genetically test them, I think. The first records of same-sex behavior, I think one of the first was described by Aristotle. He made mention of pigeons, specifically hens, mounting each other in the absence of roosters, and he speculated that that helped them lay more eggs. He also made note of same-sex behavior in partridges and quails. Plato didn't think that these behaviors naturally occurred. Even though he acknowledged that they happened in captive fowl, he didn't think that these were actually occurring in wild populations of animals. And these assumptions that wildlife didn't actually engage in same-sex behavior has fed into Christian theology, and it's frequently used as an argument against the behavior.
So what did Plato just think? Because we domesticated them, they turned gay?
Yeah, I guess he just thought it was just like captive conditions that did that. Same-sex behavior has historically been suppressed in reporting, and when it does come up, people have basically explained it away like, that's just an animal with some hormonal malfunction, or those are just displays of dominance between males. These descriptions were rarely published until the 19th century, and it still was not widely accepted in the scientific community as a common occurrence in animals until near the 20th century. This is likely due to observer bias caused by both cultural and religious attitudes toward LGBTQ people. Studies of same-sex behavior in animals is essentially a taboo subject, or it was until the 20th century. Biologists that researched it were often accused of trying to push an agenda, and they're placed under greater scrutiny than their peers. And they also were afraid that they were going to lose their grants, lose their funding sources. And it was difficult to even begin funding a project through traditional sources. Right now, the most published areas of research on same-sex behaviors has almost exclusively involved two areas. Those are explorations of the underlying genetic, neurological, hormonal, and social foundations of same-sex behaviors. And the second area they basically involve attempts to explain the adaptive significance of same-sex behavior. So there's been an emphasis on this apparent evolutionary paradox. Some people call it a Darwinian paradox. And it's basically the assumption that non-reproductive sex is detrimental to fitness. A lot of people think that, well, a lot of people, Kirkpatrick is one, by the way. Many researchers, because of this paradox, they suggest that if it's detrimental to fitness, those genetics should be selected against, and that behavior should disappear in animals. But clearly it's not disappearing, it's in 1,500 species. Two authors, and this is in the 21st century, which blows my mind, they say same-sex interactions appears to be inconsistent with traditional evolutionary theory, and it seems to violate a basic law of nature, that of procreation. 2006 and 7, guys. But the fitness consequences of same-sex behavior seem superficially obvious, especially if you assume that parents never result in offspring. But actually, in reality, the fitness consequences of homosexuality are largely unknown. There's been little testing on it, and to be fair, measuring fitness in wild populations, I have been told, is an extremely difficult endeavor, which is probably why there's not many direct measures of fitness. In reality, also, this is part 2, sexual preference is not a binary, like just straight up hetero or homosexual. It's a continuous variable, and it ranges from complete homosexuality to complete heterosexuality to anywhere in the middle. That would be bisexuality. Most researchers in the past, though, have treated it as that binary variable, leading to a bunch of confusion. Animals that exhibit same-sex behaviors often also engage in heterosexual reproduction. That would effectively make them bisexual. This suggests that they are producing offspring and shouldn't be experiencing a dramatic fitness loss. When considering sexual preference as a continuous variable, bisexuality has been suggested as like an optimal evolutionary phenotype, with stabilizing selection generally maintaining bisexuality in the species. But overall, there seems to have been an excess focus on the need to explain why same-sex behaviors have not been removed by natural selection. Here's a Canadian biologist. He states in his book, "The present ignorance of biology lies precisely in a single-minded attempt to find reproductive explanations for homosexuality, transgender, and non-procreative and other alternative heterosexualities." Because of this excess focus on same-sex behavior as a paradox, it seems like there's little attention on other traits with other obvious fitness consequences. Like one would be erectile dysfunction versus function versus dysfunction, and that is a variable with clear reproductive costs. But there's been no interest in understanding why natural selection hasn't gotten rid of erectile dysfunction. So why are people focusing so much on same-sex behaviors and not erectile dysfunction or other traits like that? In the end, it seems like there's no real or unique biological perplexity to this. It's probably driven by cultural taboos against the behavior. Several genetic models have been developed in attempts to explain this paradox. All of these models, I'm not going to get into the weeds on them because not all of us are biologists, but all of these basically consider same-sex behavior in terms of costs and benefits, basically a trade-off system. But that may be a problem in itself. This approach assumes that homosexuality is a trait that evolved strictly from heterosexuality, and it needed a reason to appear in the first place. But what if it didn't evolve from heterosexuality? What if, drumroll please, there's this new awesome hypothesis, new 2019, if that's new. This was proposed in a 2019 paper. Their hypothesis is that when sexual reproduction evolved from asexual reproduction, there may have been an early period where animals mated indiscriminately. For animals to have sexual preferences, they would have to evolve signaling that allows them to differentiate between the sexes. This would make indiscriminate mating, which is bisexuality, the basal form of sexual behavior. It would suggest that this is an ancestral trait, and heterosexuality likely evolved afterwards. This has caused a bunch of drama. These are all papers that have replied to it. See the matters arising. Yeah, this has just been a continuous train of drama since that paper was published. I'm unable to access any of those replies, even with UCA permissions. So I can't share with you the author's arguments, but just from the titles alone, you can feel the tension. Understanding same-sex sexual behavior requires thorough testing rather than reinvention of theory, which is what the 2019 paper did. Ancestral primacy of same-sex sexual behavior does not explain its prevalence in modern populations. And I don't even know what this person was replying with. But yeah, I just hope that that gave you guys some ideas on the drama that is happening even to this day. Here's all of my references. I don't know if anyone's interested in that, but if someone wants to go and take a look at this, I have all of my PowerPoint slides on the Allies and STEM folder. You can also contact me and I'll share it with you if you want. I have this Kahoot set up. Let's try to get that working.